Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining me, Kevin, at Smart Home Improvement People today. So, what I thought I'd speak about today is what is the better option in the UK? Would it be the traditional gas boiler that most people have, or the classic air source heat pump? Okay. Now, the reason I thought I'd speak about this is because obviously we've got the government trying to push people into heat pumps. Okay. And then which is all to do with renewable energy and green levies and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got a lot of people who don't want to go down that route, don't really care what the government have to say. So when it comes to the reality, what is the best option? Now, when I normally look at it, the first thing I look at is the cost. So it's no different to when solar came out back in the day. I remember when solar originally hit the market, properly when the government were offering, what was it, something like 42, 47p per unit, okay, for every kilowatt of electricity you generated. God, those were the days. But people were being charged like £30,000 a unit. Okay, so that was the fundamental problem with it. Okay, so when you take a look at heat pumps, okay, one of the big problems with heat pumps is they're bloody expensive. Okay, when you take into account the cost of a boiler. Now, I did a video about cost of the boilers. I think it was around about October time, September, October, and I got a bit of heat over it because I said the average cost is around about £2,000. And a lot of people said to me, "Oh yeah, but I can get it cheaper than that. I can get it for like £700, £800." Now, I always look at the national average because obviously I have people up in Scotland, in Wales, and all over the UK that watch my videos or watch the content that I get put out there. So when I'm going to look at this, the average is around about £2,000. You know, whether you're getting a combi boiler or whatever type of boiler you're getting, okay, there's not much difference in it. The big difference is what brand are you getting? Okay, are you going down the route of a Bosch Worcester boiler? Are you going down the route of Ideal or any of the other boiler manufacturers? What company are you getting to do it? Are you getting one of the big national companies, like iHeat or any of those types of companies, or are you getting your local boiler company to do it? So that's the first thing you've got to take into account. So depending, if you go to a big company, obviously you can pay a bit more. If you go to a local company, you're going to pay a bit less. But on average, you're looking at about £2,000. Now, when it comes to the heat pump, I really don't want to be doing this. You're looking about 5 times the amount of money. Now, you're going to be looking at around about 10 grand. Okay, it is going to vary, okay, from company to company. Yes, you can get grants before anybody says. Grants have been extended. There was an announcement this week by the UK government, but they're going to extend how long them grants are for. I think they're for about £7,500. I can't entirely remember. But if you go to the government website, okay, I'll try and put a link in the description. You'll be able to get more information about it. Okay, it does extend the process if you are applying for the grant and everything, because most companies are going to say, well, until you got the money, we're not going to really do anything. So that is one of the problems you are going to have. So that's question number one resolved. Now, the second thing you've got to look at is what are the pros and cons? So, obviously, one of the cons of actually having a heat pump is normally there's a lot of work that people need to have done. It's not just as simple as just getting a heat pump installed. There's a lot of other bits and pieces that are going to be done. And also, if you're going to go down the route of a heat pump, I would always say invest in solar as well to make it even cheaper. Okay. Now let's come on to the pros. Okay. So I'm going to read this. Okay. So it says, so it's got all the benefits here. Okay. Benefits of an air source heat pump over a boiler in the UK. So energy efficiency wise, okay, air, air source heat pumps can be up to 3 to 4 times more efficient than a gas boiler, delivering 3 to 4 units of heat for every unit of electricity consumed. This efficiency leads to lower running costs and significant CO2 reductions compared to gas boilers. So that's benefit number one. Okay. Benefit number two. Okay. Now this is something people don't generally care about. Okay. And I talk about this, and this is environmental benefits. Now, like I said, I used to work in the solar industry. Okay. And I've always said nobody ever invested in solar because they want to save the planet. So I am going to mention the environmental benefits, but to be honest, nobody is going to do this because they want to save the planet. I'm sorry to say it for all you green voters and everything, but that's reality. You know, in 15 years, I've never heard or actually had one person say to me they want to do it because of the planet and because of the environment. I've never ever, out of all the hundreds and thousands of people I've spoken to, it's never happened. But here we go. So air source heat pumps run on electricity, which is much more environmentally friendly. They can be completely zero carbon when powered by renewable electricity or solar panels. Now, the reason they say that is because the problem is this is a form of renewable energy. So you don't really want to be running it on normal electricity because you're burning fossil fuels. And the idea of a heat pump is you're not burning fossil fuels like, for instance, a gas boiler is. It's fossil fuels at the end of the day. So you want to get away with electricity because obviously, unlike in a lot of Scandinavia, okay, where the majority of that energy is provided by solar, tidal, I can't remember what it's called now. I'm making myself sound stupid. Wind turbines, all that kind of stuff. Okay. The UK's amount is a lot lower, considerably. So if you take, for instance, most of us, our electricity, at the end of the day, is generated by fossil fuels in power stations. Yes, we do have nuclear and their wind turbines and solar, but it's not a very big amount. So if you are going to go down this route, okay, you want to invest in solar. Get solar panels put on your roof, reduce your electricity bill for your reliance on energy at the end of the day to bring it down so it reduces your costs at the end of the day. And solar will save you money. Trust me on that. I know because I've got solar on my roof. Okay, now when it comes to the maintenance cost is a lot less. So air source heat pumps require less maintenance than traditional boilers. Regular checks and annual servicing by a qualified engineer are usually sufficient to keep the system running efficiently. They have long-term reliability with proper maintenance. Air source heat pumps can last 15 to 20 years, providing stable heating and potential increases in property value. Now, I hate it when people say, oh, increase the property value. Because it doesn't mean it's going to make it easier for you to sell your house. Because it's like I've always said, and I've come back to solar. There are people that love solar, and then there are people who absolutely despise it. You know, I remember when I first started working in the solar industry, I was on the phones, worked in telesales, and the amount of women who say, "Oh, I hate solar." You know, when I come out and go into my back garden, I've got to look at them horrible solar panels on my roof. Nothing worse. How many people actually look at their roof? You know, come on. You know, but that's the reality. Not everybody likes solar. Okay, not everybody likes renewable energy. It couldn't help you sell your house. It may go against it. That's me being brutally honest. Whether people like it or not. Okay, so that's what it comes to when it comes to reliability. And I know that there are going to be people out there say, yeah, but I've had my boiler last 15 or 20 years. And the funny thing is, I've known a lot of people, especially when it was like the old glowworm boilers, you know, the box kind of rectangular ones, which were like probably about 4 to 5 foot high. I remember my mum having one in our old house when we lived in Southampton. It was years old, okay, and still did the job at the end of the day. Okay, so you got the argument from both sides at the end of the day. But boilers nowadays, you're looking at 5 to 10 years as a general rule. Now, the last thing I'm going to come to when it comes to this is incentives. Now, the government, like I did say earlier, have extended the grants that are available. So you've got the grants for the boilers, okay, if you're on benefits or anything like that. And then you've got the grants which are available, which I think is for about £7,500 towards the cost of air source heat pumps. Okay. Now they've extended them. I'm probably going to get this year wrong. I think it's about 2029, 2030. Okay, there was an announcement this week by the government. Okay, if you want to find out the exact date, okay, and the exact amount of money, because I can't remember off the top of my head, okay, you can go to the government website, okay, and it has all the information in there. Okay, so you'll be able to find out. If I can find it, I'll get you a link and I'll put it in the description. So if you want to go and take a look, you can go and do that as well. Okay, which brings me on to the fundamental, which is actually the best option. And I always end up looking at it from this point of view. Where in the UK do you live? Now, there's a lot of people in America, okay, and I appreciate our weather is completely different to the United States, where they will say, because heat pumps are used a lot more in America than they are in the UK, and they will say that if you have adverse weather, as in cold weather, heat pumps will struggle. They will struggle in the extreme cold weather. So if you're in Scotland and you get a lot of snow, you know, especially up in the Highlands or anything, I would suggest you're probably better off sticking with a gas boiler. Okay, that's what I would actually say. I probably shouldn't say that. I'll probably get myself in a lot of trouble for saying it. But I always believe in telling the truth. You know, that's the way I see it. And that's what all these videos are about. It's giving informed information. Now, as you come down the UK and the weather improves, like for instance, I live on the south coast of England. I live in a seaside town. Okay, lovely in the winter because none of the holiday makers are here to irritate me. Okay, not quite so nice in the summer because I can't even go fishing on the beach. Okay, and my son's moaning at me because I can't take him fishing because it's full of holiday makers and kids messing about in the water. So destroys our chances of being able to catch a smooth end or something. You know, but if you take that away, further south you come, so when you start hitting the Midlands and further south, you're probably actually going to be better off with the heat pump. So as long as you're willing to pay the bit extra, okay, for all the bits and pieces that needs to be done, and it's not a 5 minute job, done in a day or anything, okay, then you go down the route of the heat pump. Now, the last thing I'm going to say, okay, and this is something I could be proven wrong because it could change. Now, obviously, originally the government were planning on pushing out boilers out by 2035. Now, obviously, that looks like that's not going to happen. Okay, but that still could happen. Okay, so at the moment, you should be okay if you want to go down the route of the boiler, because it is like a fifth of the cost, if not even more than that, realistically. Because I've had people say, I've got a boiler for under £1,000 and installed, which I could quite easily believe, which means you're looking at a tenth of the cost. So you got to look at it from, you got to outweigh the benefits and the negatives. So obviously the big negative is going to be the cost. Okay, the big pros, if you're able to look at long term, which I appreciate not a lot of people are going to be able to in the economic climate we are the potential savings. Are you willing to invest in solar as well? And that's what you've got to take into account. So I hope this helps everybody out today. Okay, if you've got any other questions, you can always get in touch with us on my website, which is obviously www.smarthomeimprovement.people.uk, or you can always ping me an email, which is smarthomeimprovement.people@gmail.com. But like I said, I will put some of the links in as well, so you can go to some of the government links as well. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you all again a bit later.